Shiviti Adonai lenegdi tamid. Shiviti Adonai lenegdi tamid. I have set the eternal always before me. God is at my side. I shall not be moved. And therefore does my heart exult and my soul rejoice. My being is secure. For I know that you will not abandon me to death, O God, nor will you let your faithful ones see destruction. You show me the path of life. Your presence brings fullness of joy. Enduring happiness is your gift. Marianne and family and friends, we gather to remember Bob, Robert H. Vincent. And our tradition has us begin a memorial service with this passage from the 16th Psalm that speaks of enduring happiness and exaltation of the heart. It seems a curiosity, really an outright paradox, because the mood is entirely different today. And so we have to ask, why begin with this psalm, which speaks of happiness and joy, when in fact we are grieving? It is our tradition's way of reminding us that even in grief, we reach deep into ourselves to also find gratitude for the gift of Bob's life, for the relationship that he had with each one of you, for the love that you had for him and the love he had for all of you. For all of this, we are grateful. And even in our grief, we look back with happiness and exaltation. We are thankful for the gift of his life and the years granted him, and that we had the opportunity to spend those years with him. Death makes us ask the eternal questions about the purpose and meaning of life. The author of the Psalms asked them this way: O God, what are we that you have regard for us? What are we that you are mindful of us? It seems that we are little more than a breath. Our days are like a passing shadow. We come and go like grass, which in the morning shoots up renewed, and yet in the evening it fades and withers. You cause us to turn to dust, saying, Return, O you mortal creatures. If only we were wise and understood where we are going. But this we do know. Mark the wholehearted, and behold the upright. They shall know true peace. Marianne and Debbie and Scott and your family, you grieve in a darkened world today. And those who have mourned understand that in your silence there is sadness, in your tears loneliness. We gather with you to comfort you, to embrace you, to envelop you with our caring and our love. And we pray that the presence of loving family and friends will be a comfort and a consolation. And we gather with you not only that we might comfort you, but to call upon God on your behalf and to ask God to be with you in this sad time, that you might also feel God's loving embrace and be comforted. I hardly have to tell everyone here what a good man, what a wonderful man Bob was. the way he cared for and loved his family, the friendships he had with all of you here, and that character within him, that love, that caring that he possessed, it united all of us in life. And it's not severed by death. It stays with us in our hearts and in our minds, in our very beings. And so, as I said, we do grieve today, and we grieve deeply. And yet we are also thankful for the companionship that we shared with Bob along life's path. And we are thankful for the gifts of his heart and his mind, all those things he did that brought joy and happiness and celebration into our lives. And we are thankful for a lifetime of memories that are precious to us and that we treasure. I'd like to recite the 23rd Psalm in the Hebrew and then in the English. Many of you will be familiar with this, and I invite you to join me in its recitation. Adonai ro'i lo echsar binot deshe yarbitzeni al mei menuchot yenahaleni nafshi yeshovev. Yancheni v'ma'agalei tzedek lema'an shemo gam ki elech begeitz al mavet lo irara ki ata imadi shiftecha umishantecha hema yenachamuni. Ta'aroch lefanai shulchan neged sorerai. Tishanta v'shemen roshi kosi revaya achto v'chesed yirdefuni. Kol yemei chayai, v'shafti b'veit Adonai le'orech yamim. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Bob had a favorite meditation, really a prayer, that he recited with his children at bedtime each night, and which the grandchildren all seem to know also. And I have no doubt that Kennedy and any other future great-grandchildren, some on their way, some yet unknown, will also learn this and be able to recite it by heart before too long. Before in sleep I close my eyes, to thee, O God, my thoughts arise. I thank thee for thy blessings, all which come to us, thy children small. O keep me safe all through the night, that I may see the morning light. To share a poem and some remembrances, I'd like to call upon Aaron and Ethan and Brian. Have Aaron come up first.
As many of you know, Papa was a very avid golf enthusiast, so we've chosen a poem called The Golf Course in the Sky. As 18 flags flew at half-mast and glasses were soberly raised high, the latest member was having a ball at the golf course in the sky. Freed from the gravity of the situation, the first tee shot soared through space, bringing a wondrous, beaming smile to a kind, down-to-earth face. Surrounded by old club friends, once thought never to be seen again, the infinity course beckoned ahead, 18 holes were for mere mortal men.
Hi, thank you all for coming. So one thing that always amazed me about death is how final it is. It's the truest, most absolute form of goodbye. It's not a goodbye, see you later. It's just simply a final goodbye, and it's definitive. And my grandfather was one of the most decisive and definitive people that I've ever met. I don't ever once recall him humming and hawing. It was always, this is what we're going to do, and this is how we're going to do it. To me, that was one of the defining characteristics of Papa, and I adored him for it. Having the will to know exactly what you want and how you want it done speaks about someone. I think it makes them confident, proud, and courageous, and that's what he was to me. He taught me a lot of things during our time together. He taught me how to fish, how to play chess, how to do Sudoku puzzles, and yes, of course, how to golf. I've never considered myself to be a patient person, so I'll never forget how patient he was with me. I always felt like he truly wanted to teach me something and was willing to put in the time and the effort to do so. I remember one of the first times we went out golfing together. I'm pretty sure it was at Walden. He left me in the cart and went out walking towards his ball a couple of yards forward and at least 30 yards to the side. I lined up my shot and swung so hard that I not only shanked the ball, but before I even looked up, I realized the club had slipped from my hands. I looked up to see it flying towards Papa and remember thinking in those few seconds, well, that's it. He's never going to take me golfing again. The club barely missed him, and I remember him stopping, just looking at me, and laughing. He then proceeded to give me a few pointers on how to keep hold of the club, and we just kept on playing. I don't think I'll ever forget that day and that moment, because it reminds me of some of my favorite times with him and what he meant to me. He was never short on jokes or witty little quips about whatever was transpiring wherever we went. I think me and him shared the same sense of humor, and I could appreciate that. And I would look forward to those jokes and such because I always thought he was so clever, and I admired that. From what I've gathered, Papa wasn't exactly born with a silver spoon. He grew up in the projects as a kinsman cowboy, and that alone sounds pretty rough and tough. I would joke with him that for the better part of his whole life, he was pretty much always moving east, moving up from where he started. As he grew up, he would move farther east away from the tougher parts of town, and as he grew, he would move up the social and economic ladder as well. For a kid who grew up in the projects, I think he ended up doing pretty damn well. A lot of that, of course, can be attributed to Nanny. Nanny and Papa had a very interesting dynamic to me. Neither one ever put up with each other's crap, and I love that. They were both such fiercely independent while at the same time very dependent on each other. You could tell that they were truly deeply in love because they were always just able to be themselves. Nanny really grounded Papa as I think he grounded her. I'm going to miss my grandfather. I'll miss the fishing, the chess, and the golfing. I'll miss his wit and his patience for me, but mostly I'll just simply miss being able to talk to him. There's a handful of people that really make you who you are, and for me, my grandfather was one of them. I love you, Papa. Goodbye for now.
Thank you all for being here. My father-in-law came from very humble beginnings, but he did extremely well. He married his high school sweetheart, Mary Ann, whom he loved very much. Together they raised two beautiful children, Debbie and Scott, whom he also loved very much. He was very fond of his late sister Barbara and her children David, Larry, and Leslie. Dad's friends were very important to him. He had great stories about his vacations, poker games, and golf trips. I had the good fortune of knowing Dad for most of my life. I got my love of golf from him. He gave me my first set of golf clubs. I've never been a good golfer, but that never stopped him from wanting to play with me or encouraging me to keep playing. Father's Day was a special golf day with his brother-in-law Mark, his sons and his grandsons. Even after his health was failing, Dad insisted on playing golf on Father's Day. Last year was the most difficult. The goal was for him not to fall. We took turns standing by him during each swing of the club. We made it to the last hole and congratulated ourselves on our accomplishment, no falls. But then it happened. He swung the club, spun around, and fell down. He was fine. We all had a good laugh. Dad made us promise not to tell Mom what happened. Dad enjoyed computers. He wrote a really nice inventory management program for his boot store. Later in life, he played online games and jigsaw puzzles. After moving to Breckenridge, Dad's morning routine included reading and eating 2 bagels at Brugger's. One was always pumpernickel. I worked nearby and occasionally stopped by for a bagel. It was a special treat if Dad was there. I will miss my morning bagels with him. How do you judge if a person did well in life? Is it how much money and material possessions they accumulated? Is it how many people they loved and how many people loved them? If it is the latter, then Dad did extremely well. Dad, thank you for everything that you did for me and my family. You brought much joy to our lives. We love you and miss you already.
Thank you all. We know that words that come from the heart enter directly into the heart. Many young people, and especially teenagers, often question the value of what they're learning at school. So much of it seems irrelevant. It doesn't even matter the subject. Some complain that history seems to have no meaning. What do we need to learn this math for? But 10th grade algebra paid off pretty good for you and Bob, Marianne. You met in algebra class. I'm not sure if it was his 10th grade or your 10th grade, doesn't matter. You were seated one in front of the other or one behind the other because if you were seated alphabetically, and Weitzman, or as we like to say, Weitzman and Vincent, they were front to back. And so Bob, in his own way, flirted with you a little bit, and, well, one thing led to another, and dare we say, here we are. You had a wonderful romance from the time you met until the time you married, and had a wonderful marriage for 60 years. One of the first things you said to me yesterday, Marianne, was Bob wasn't materialistic. And in Jewish tradition, we don't measure success by material wealth. But you asked the question, how do we measure success in life? How do we know a person's done well? And in our tradition, it's not based on material well-being, though there's nothing wrong with that. But we measure it in the kinds of relationships that we had. And one of the first ways we measure that is through family relationships. And Marianne, you and Bob, you are very wealthy people with your 2 children and 6 grandchildren And as I mentioned, one great-grandchild, Kennedy, who's here, and two more in utero, waiting to announce themselves, and God willing, more beyond that. We say that children are our investment in the future, and grandchildren the dividend on that investment. And great-grandchildren, that must be some kind of wild compound interest. And that makes sense because you met in math class. And so it's easy to see that Bob, he was warm-hearted and caring, and those of you that have been friends of his for a lifetime, you know that he was the kind of person that people cared for, and that once you were his friend and he was yours, that was a lifetime commitment, and he held on to friends throughout his life. First and foremost, he was a husband and a father, and as those of you who know him know that after that, second in place, came the golf course. He loved to play golf, moved to Walden and lived there for years and years because there was a golf course right there. He had taken flying lessons to become a pilot years ago, was interested in that, and then one day, after a little bit of mechanical trouble, realized that it didn't seem smart to him to put his future and his family at risk, and he said, enough. He was still interested in planes, but he gave up on getting a pilot's license. And he was a reader. He loved to read. You've heard about the bagels and a book, going to a bagel shop, whether it was on vacation or to Bruegger's once he was out at Breckenridge or wherever it was he lived. He found a bagel shop in the morning, and he would take a book with him. And in years when he was working, he would read, obviously, in his spare time. He loved fiction and novels, Robert Ludlum tales, and so on. Ben tells a wonderful story, Bob's grandson, that he wasn't really a reader, still isn't, I think, but that he would fake read. He'd grab a book and fake read just so he could go get a bagel with Papa. I love that ingenuity. And of course, if he wasn't with his family, and if he wasn't on the golf course or he wasn't working, there's a pretty good chance you could find him fishing somewhere, especially if it was vacation and they were in Florida. Now, every fisherman has his own tales and his own secrets and his own tricks. But one time he went to go fishing. I think it was with Hallie. I don't remember exactly who told me this story. And they were short on bait. But there was some old locks in the refrigerator going bad. And they took that. They must have been Jewish fish because they went for that old locks. And they had a great day fishing. Imagine if you take a little cream cheese with you and a bagel. Could have eaten for a lifetime. You've heard about the things and the people that Bob loved. Here's what he hated. He hated lies. He was a man of integrity and honesty. And you knew, as a child or a grandchild, you knew you were in trouble if you ever tried to lie. That's not who he was. He didn't like it. He didn't tolerate it. in the Torah portion in the past couple of weeks, we're in a section of the Torah where we've been reading about the building of the Mishkan, the sacred place that was the portable sanctuary, the tabernacle that the Israelites had while they were in the 40-year period of wandering in the desert. And at one point, they are commanded by God through Moses, that every single person has to bring an offering of the heart. It was a voluntary donation, but it was required. That's an interesting concept. A voluntary donation that's required, but it was required. What was voluntary about it was each person could bring whatever they wished, whatever amount, whatever object of value, however valuable it may have been or not so valuable. Every person kind of brought what they could afford. That was the voluntary aspect. And I thought about that from the Torah portion this past week as I thought about Bob. Because what he brought to all of you, time and time and time again, over and over, throughout his lifetime, was the voluntary offering of his heart. And he gave to you so many things of value. And to each one of you, something different might have been value. But he brought those things to you, and he shared them with you, and he gave them to you. We should remember today that he was not only a loving father and a loving husband, but he was a loving son and a loving grandson to his parents and grandparents. His sister Barbara and her family, as has been mentioned, were very dear to him, and he loved them deeply. And he had a very deep and close and meaningful relationship with his brother-in-law, with your brother Mark. He was an old school kind of guy, and he didn't always have a lot to say. But when he said something, you knew that it was worth listening to. It would have impact and import. Our tradition teaches that when we die, we take nothing with us from this world. No material goods accompany us. In death, a pauper is just the same as Bill Gates. There's no difference. What survives us is the Keter Shem Tov, the crown of a good name. That the rabbi said some people, in the way they live and in the way they love, they earn for themselves. And that Keter Shem Tov, that crown of a good name, survives our death. Bob earned that crown of a good name many times over, in many different arenas in his life. And now the crown of his good name is your inheritance. You wear it, you carry it with you into the future. And with every good and honest deed you do, especially for a person in need, you wear Bob's crown and you pay tribute to his life. And with every embrace and every ounce of love you share with one another and with others, with friends and family, you wear his good crown and you pay tribute to his memory. Zecher Tzadik Livracha, the memory of a good and a righteous man, is forever a blessing to all who knew him and to all who loved him. Amen. For everything there is a season, a time for every experience, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot, a time to tear down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to grieve and a time to dance, a time to throw stones and a time to gather stones, a time to seek and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to discard, a time to tear and a time to sow, a time to keep silence and a time to speak. The author of the biblical book Ecclesiastes wrote this: "The eye never has its fill of seeing." It is an eternal truth that young or old, those who leave this world never see enough of it, never complete all of their tasks, never cherish their loved ones enough before they are called home. How they yearned for yet another respite from that final summons, and how we yearned to have those we love close to us for another challenge in our lives, another joyous occasion, another precious moment. O God, we call upon you. Be now with those whose hearts are broken, because whenever parting comes, it comes too soon. Console Bob's family and all who grieve. Be near to them, even when your light seems distant. Sustain the mourners, O God, until their time of healing. Please rise. El Malay Rachamim Shochein Bamromim Hamtzei Menucha Nechona Tachat Kanfei Hashchina Im Kedoshim Utehorim Kizohar Harakia Mazhirim Et Nishmat Rafulski Shahalach Le'olamo Began Eden Tehei Menuchato Ana Bal Harachamim Hastirehu Beseter Kanafecha Le'olamim Vayitzror Bitzro HaChayim Et nishmato Adonai hu nachalato V'yanuach b'shalom al mishkavo V'nomar Amen. Compassionate God, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence to Robert H. Vincent, for he has now entered eternity. O God of mercy, we pray, may Bob find refuge in your eternal presence, and may his soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. God is his inheritance, and let us all say, Amen. We remain standing. Al mikomo yavo b'shalom. May Bob come to his eternal home in peace. Like the stars by day, our beloved dead are not seen by mortal eyes, and yet they shine on forever, for they know an eternal peace. Let us be thankful for the companionship that continues in love stronger than death. We sanctify God's name, and we honor Bob's memory as together we recite the words of the mourner's Kaddish. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah. Be'alma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei. B'chayechon u'v'yomechon v'chayei dechol beit Yisrael ba'agala uvizman kariv v'imru amen. Yehi shmei rabba mevarach le'olam ulomei olmaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalal shemei dekudasha berichu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata ta'amiran bi'alma v'imru amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya. V'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav hu ya'aseh shalom. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Please be seated. The family will observe Shiva today, immediately after our service, until 5 p.m. And I correct that. It says from 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. But are we going right back now? Yeah. Until 5 p.m. and then to give the family a chance to have some dinner. And then they will receive friends again at 7 to 9 p.m. Shiva will be observed at Debbie and Brian's house, 6828 Wildwood Trail in Mayfield Village. For those of you who may wish to honor Bob's memory with a charitable contribution, the family suggests that you direct your generosity to the Cleveland chapter of the Alzheimer's Association. We conclude with these traditional words of consolation. Hamakom yinachem etchem b'toch shar avlei Tzion v'Yerushalayim. May God grant you comfort, and may you who mourn be comforted, along with all the mourners in Zion, in Jerusalem, and in our community. Amen.